coverage of the 92nd General Assembly. And so we got a lot of news to get to. Check out conduitnews.com. There's several stories there, as well as a great story over at Conduit for Action about semantics. So we're going to talk about that today. As well as we got a few guests. We're going to talk about the global warming scam, really actually the solar and wind power scam. We'll have a guest on to talk about that and more. Stay tuned.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks. Welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. We're broadcasting in the 101.1 The Answer Studios in Little Rock, Arkansas. This is part of our coverage of the 92nd General Assembly. We want to welcome you to the program. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine here, and we can't do that without you. You can feel free to text the program, 870-275-9799, or you can sound off over at the Facebook page, facebook.com/Conduit News. I'm pulling it up right now so I can chat with you guys and see what you're saying. Skip says, good morning. Good morning. Tim, good morning to you as well, sir. So we really appreciate all you guys listening on the online platform where we're actually able to bring you video from Little Rock as well as audio. Pretty uneventful day yesterday at the Capitol. I was here. Not a lot has happened. I will say one of the things that I am anticipating today is Stephen Meeks. Now, we had Stephen Meeks on the program on Tuesday, and he discussed his bill to regulate microchipping of employees, meaning the forced microchipping of employees. And it's pretty interesting stuff. We had I felt like a really thought-provoking interview. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And also from a theological perspective, the whole microchipping thing has brought up a great excuse to talk about eschatology, which is a end time study and that sort of thing. And so that's been a lot of fun. But I thought he was going to run his bill yesterday afternoon, and turns out he's running it. Last I heard, because I saw him in the elevator, he's going to run it this morning at 10. When the House convenes this morning at 10 a.m., he's going to run this bill. And so I just am excited to see, the way I understand it, there was some misconceptions about the bill, and the interview that we did seemed to clear some of that up for some members. And so we're always happy to provide that and, allow this platform to be used so we can get the truth out there. So we have that coming up, and so that's going to be that to me. That I don't know, maybe I'm just a dork, but to me that's kind of like the highlight of my day, what I'm looking forward to anyway. Again, the telephone number is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Some people are saying, Mark on Facebook says that this camera says that's no good. That my color is bad and I don't need to eat it. Well, I can't help it. Yeah, I'm kind of pasty, guys. I apologize. I can't help it. Quit complexion shaming me. I don't like to be complexion shamed. Let's talk about this article over at conduitforaction.org this morning. This kind of it builds on a segment we had about this Michael Wickline piece earlier in the week on the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, where he said and was asking members of the legislature about their tax pledge, meaning they pledged not to cut taxes, 23 of them, which that's kind of sad, right? Isn't it sad? Or not to raise taxes, rather. Isn't it sad that only 23 legislators signed the Grover Norquist no tax increase pledge? I just find that sad to me. I think it's only 23. But anyway, Michael Wickline was asking the question, hey, like if you're going to refer an amendment to the voters, or refer rather an issue to the voters as to whether or not they're going to, vote to raise their gas tax, is that in fact a vote for a tax increase? Now, some said, yeah, that's a tax increase. I'm voting for a tax increase. That's the way I see it, by the way. Others say, no, technically, no, I'm just voting it so the people can decide. So I'm not voting for the tax increase. Therefore, I'm not breaking my pledge. Yeah. I don't see it that way. But here we have a headline. It's over at conduitforaction.org, using semantics to avoid blame for a tax increase. Arkansas legislators who made the no tax increase pledge, sponsored by Americans for Tax Reform, were asked by the Democrat Gazette whether it would break their pledge, if they voted to refer a tax on gasoline and diesel fuel to the vote of the people. Some legislators said yes, it would break the pledge. Others said no, it wouldn't violate their pledge because technically they wouldn't be voting on a tax, but they would be merely sending the tax issue to a vote of the people. Grover Norquist of Americans for Tax Reform was asked whether he thinks referring a tax to the people violates the pledge. He dodged the question. Quote, "The commitment is to the voters and the people of Arkansas," he said, referring to the pledge. "The argument over compliance with the pledge is going to be with the people of Arkansas, not me." So we are asking you, the people of Arkansas, do you think voting to refer a tax to the ballot is the equivalent of a legislator voting for the tax? We're talking about all answer. Let's consider a few things. Let's talk about what it means when the legislature refers an issue to the voters. In this case, it appears there are not enough votes in the legislature to impose the new tax. And this is an angle I hadn't considered. The only option to move forward with the effort to impose a tax is to get the legislature to refer the tax to the ballot, meaning you have to have a lot of votes to, actually pass this tax increase, which is great, by the way. It tells you how conservative the people who thought up this government actually were. For a legislator who opposes the tax, the only sure bet is to just say no. No to the tax and no to referring the issue to the ballot. That guarantees there will be no tax. Now, I have raised this point. I mean, why would I be against the tax? Why would any legislator be against the tax increase and vote for a referendum and let the people decide? I mean, if you're against the tax, you would vote against because you guarantee 100% that you're going to get what you want and there won't be a tax increase. Likewise, if you vote for it, then you're for the tax increase. I don't see how you can dodge that, but they'll try because they've done it a million times before. This is how Democrats, by the way, and this is what's so sad. Back when this was a Democrat-controlled state, this is how they raised taxes. This was their excuse. The Republicans here are actually taking a play out of the Democrat playbook back when they ruled this state and had to grow government, but then go back home and act like they were conservative. That's the truth, by the way. It's just a fact. That's what's going on here. This is what's being set up. A legislator who wants the tax will, of course, be for referring the issue to the ballot. What about a legislator who says, I just want to let the people decide? At worst, this is a deception to get a tax passed. And in the best light, it means the legislature doesn't care whether the tax passes or not. Okay, all right, that's reasonable. And then I oppose the tax, but I just want the people to have the opportunity to vote on it. Either there isn't communication between the left and right sides of the brain, or the legislator is doing a dance to try to avoid responsibility. Ballot deception. Let's talk about that for a second. In 2017, some legislators tried to get the gas and diesel tax question referred to the people, but they came up short on votes in the House of Representatives. But here is the kicker. The ballot was not going to say anything about raising taxes. Instead, the issue would have been asked to vote on, the issue you would have been asked to vote on was whether to authorize a bond issue for highways. The bond issue would have automatically triggered the tax without the ballot ever mentioning a tax. So when a legislator says he wants to give you the opportunity to vote on more taxes on the ballot may not even ever say anything about taxes, depending on how deceptive they make the language, deceptive or transparent. I guess they could be transparent. According to the Democrat Gazette, only 23 of Arkansas state legislators signed the no tax increase pledge, but there are 100 representatives and 35 senators in the Arkansas legislature. That means less than 6% of the members of the legislature made a no tax increase pledge. When looking at how few legislators made the pledge, remember this legislator is overwhelmingly Republican. And, the party that's supposed to be about less taxes. How few made the pledge is a likely indicator of what is ahead this session and an indicator of the games the legislator will play with your taxes. If that is not depressing enough, consider that some of the 23 are saying the pledge doesn't count if they merely refer the issue to the ballot. Let your legislator know whether you are for or against a new tax on gasoline and diesel fuels. Tell them to vote it up or down instead of trying to pass it by putting it on the ballot. Again, that's up at conduitforaction.org right now. Pretty fascinating when you consider it is semantics. Because what we're essentially talking about here is more money coming out of your pocket to fund the government. Now, they're going to say, well, we got to have it to fund roads. The highway department, they're giving away money. The highway department is giving away money to the University of Arkansas so they can build a building. But they're coming to us and asking us for more money to build roads. I thought the highway department was supposed to build roads. You can build roads to the new building, but you can't build the building. But they're doing it anyway. Yeah, it's only $1 million. Hey, I don't think that's anything to sneeze at in Arkansas. And not when it comes to roads, not when it comes to matching funds, federal matching funds and things like that. I don't think that's anything to sneeze at. Telephone number again, 870-275-9799. I will reiterate that the score back home, the score that we're talking about back home, the whiteboard this week, means keeping score to me means at the end of this session, the only score to me that matters is how much money's coming from the people to fund the government. Is it more or less? Is it the same? If it's the same, fantastic. If it's the same, that's a good thing. If it's the same. Coming up on the program, I want to give you a little preview here. We're going to be talking next hour, 7:05 to two guests. At 7:05, I want to introduce you to Norman Rogers. He's a retired physicist. He's author of a book called Dumb Energy, A Critique of Wind and Solar Energy. Excited to have him on. Governments love to subsidize that type of thing. And then at the bottom of the next hour, I want to introduce you to the Faulkner County Circuit Clerk. Her name is Crystal Taylor. We're going to have her on the program as well to talk about government at the local level. I really enjoy doing this, by the way. On Monday, we had Washington County newly elected Justice of the Peace, Patrick Deakins, on the program. And we talked to him about the things that he's already doing as a freshman, reorganizing how resolutions are passed or ordinances. And so I wanted to also have Crystal Taylor on to talk about what she's been doing as circuit clerk. A lot of people don't even know what a circuit clerk does. So we're going to have her on and talk about some of the things that she's done, some of the problems. That's what, anytime you have a new person that goes into an office, I'm always interested in the problems that they discover that they didn't know about before they got in there. That's always fascinating to me. All right, so check out Conduit News. We're going to get to more stories here in just a moment when we come back. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. This is our coverage of the 92nd General Assembly. A lot of stuff's supposed to, a lot of stuff's going to happen in the next couple of months. It's kind of been a slow first 2 weeks. That's the way it always is. But we'll keep you posted on everything, and check out conduitnews.com. We're going to be back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the program from the Patrons of X746. We got Mr. Dan Borum on the line. Dan, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good this morning, Paul. How about you, buddy?
I am doing fantastic. I want to remind everybody that the Patriots of X746, you guys are on a mission to educate the citizens of Arkansas on their gun rights. Arkansas is a constitutional carry state thanks to a 2013 law, which means you can carry a weapon open or concealed without a permit. And if you want more information, go to Facebook.com and click on, or type in rather, Patriots of X746 in the search bar and ask to become a member of their group of 17,000 strong plus Patriots. So, Dan, are you keeping a close eye on what's going on in the 92nd General Assembly?
Paul, we're trying our very best to keep a close eye on it. There's...
This is ASA News, The Parrot. With breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. I'm Bob Baloney. There are reports circling around from politicians who are in the know, and the same phrase keeps being used. That phrase is new revenue generation. Let's go to our reporter on the ground from the Capitol, Haley Hogwash. Haley?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, it seems the more politicians I talk to, the more I hear the phrase new revenue generation. We're trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you can rest assured it will be good for the people of Arkansas.
Haley, it certainly sounds like something good. I like how the phrase uses the word generation. That makes me think this has got to be doing something positive for our children in the future. Haley?
Yes, Bob, some new developments. I've just been speaking to some people who are here and are not politicians, and they tell me the phrase new revenue generation is actually code for a new tax.
Oh, my. Well, if this is true, Haley, that would add to a growing list of new taxes that have barely made any headlines at all, so it's best not to discuss them here on ASA News, The Parrot.
Yes, Bob, I know it's sure to make government officials angry that their phrasing of the new revenue generation has been changed by the people and called a tax increase.
I would expect an announcement from Mother Government soon to set the record straight. What is the new tax? Revenue generation, Haley?
Well, this new tax, a new revenue generation would add to a growing list. First, there was a revenue generation on movies, books, and songs that people download using the internet. And next, there was the tax increase. I'm sorry, Bob, the new revenue generation on all purchases made using the internet. And now I'm told this new revenue generation is a tax on the people's patience.
I realize the people don't like it, Haley, but specifically, what is the new tax? Revenue generation.
No, Bob, I'm telling you, according to the activists here at the Capitol who have gathered and are listening to some radio broadcast, the revenue generation is literally taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. I'm told the less patience you have with the government
better not tax our patience.
The more they will tax your patience and the more money you will owe at a later date. I'm also told the collection method on taxing your patients will be decided in a newly formed multicolored ribbon task force.
How taxing.
PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, John Brummett, he's got an article today, Cover for the Wimp Caucus. He's talking about this exact same thing. We just read you the article over at Conduit for Action, talking about how legislators are using semantics to avoid blame for a tax increase. John Brummett writes, if you are a garden variety right-wing Republican state legislator avowed not to raise taxes, what does it make you if you agree to refer a tax increase for the voters' decision? Does it make you responsive to the state needs and voter accountability while true to your word? Oh, man, ridiculous. He goes on, or does it make you a fraud, vowing to not raise taxes and then permitting and tacitly endorsing a tax increase by passing on the prospect to the voters rather than stomping it flat when you have the chance? Ooh, that's some truth right there. That is some truth. Or does it make you a simple wimp, unwilling to step up to the responsibility of your office in a representative democracy, or to live by what you preach, or to do the right thing, however you see it, without fear or favor? I'm not asking hard questions here, John Brummett writes. The answer is wimp, of course. I think that's why I'm telling you, you need to go listen to our, you can go to conduitnews.com. I think that's why Marcus Richmond, when he was on this program, for, I guess, a couple of weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. He's the majority leader of the House of Representatives. He's a Republican, and he said he didn't think we needed to refer it to the people. He said we need to own up and vote for the tax. If we can't do anything else, that we just need to own up and vote for the tax. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I would respect that decision so much more than doing this nonsense where we have another ballot issue and we have another, you know what I'm, why can't we just say, you know what? I know I am not for higher taxes sometimes, but in this case, we just have to fund our roads. Why can't you just say that and then go to the people and face your voters? Why do you have to spin it? Well, I know you're afraid of, most of them, they want to come back. Well, if you want to come back, just do it the people. We're already giving you money to do these things. And not to mention, if you refer it to the people, it's not going to be a straight tax increase. It'll be a bond issue. They'll have to do bonds, which makes it more expensive. And a lot of times, if you've been listening to this program for a while, we've told you a lot of times that bond increases, or every time, bond increases are future tax increases. Because, you're leveraging the state and everything. And so in this case, you be kind of like the taxpayer would be getting hit twice here. So I thought Brummett's piece was interesting. What do you think? Sound off at number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. When we come back, I'm going to tell you about a student that's been, there's a controversy brewing in Northwest Arkansas over the Confederate battle flag and somebody wearing that Confederate battle flag to school. We'll tell you about that story first. If I think KARK first broke the story, but we've got a piece up at conduitnews.com about it if you want to know more. And we also are going to get to the Arkansas. Let's see here. Let me read you some of these headlines. We're going to go over here in just a moment. Arkansas students suspended for the Confederate battle flag. The Senate Tax Committee gets underway. We're going to be monitoring that for you. Also, we have this story here. Senate approves a new Veterans Task Force. That was probably the biggest thing that happened yesterday. The Senator Trent Gardner, there's another task force, but this time it's on veterans. We'll tell you all that, as well as I don't know if anybody saw or listened to Democrat Senator Larry Teague's opening prayer yesterday, but it was really good. And then we'll also find out a little bit more about the governor's reorganization plan. We brought you the audio yesterday of what happened in the Senate, talking about where are the savings, why can't we have an exact number on what the purported savings are. Well, the House State Agencies Committee is taking up the same bill, and they have similar questions. We'll give you that audio as well next.
Some of us that are working constantly, and we have others that, yes, they have busy lives as well, but we try to come home at nights, and after we take care of our families and sit down and do our best to go through some of these bills, and certainly we can't go through all of them, and really as many that are coming out, I really can't expect my representative to be able to see all of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is a problem. You're talking about 2,000-something bills, and they got to figure out what they're all going to do. Yeah, it's a big deal. I know there's a few bills you wanted to go over on the program today. Let's start with SB 5, Senate Bill 5 by Senator Trent Garner, Larry Teague, and Representative Watson. What does this bill do?
Basically, from what I read, the bill just makes the shotgun the state gun.
This one actually is the knife. This is to designate the Bowie knife.
Okay,
as
yes.
the official state knife.
SB 5 is the Bowie knife, and SB 6 is the gun.
Yeah.
Thank you. But yes, SB 5 makes the Bowie knife the state knife. I guess as far as history goes, and for tourists that's coming through and they want to look up our state and see what our state bird is, our state flower, well, I guess it'd be pretty nice to see what the state knife is as well. But as far as our group, we neither oppose it nor do we support it. It's trivial in considering what all our state is going through right now. The importance of looking at some of these bills that has life-changing effects for the citizens in Arkansas. Bills such as SB 5 and SB 6, it really doesn't carry much water with us.
Okay. And, when I saw it, I thought, all right, cool. The Bowie knife,
sure.
The Bowie knife, all right, that's it,
Right.
It is what it is. And that's the same thing with this next one, SB 6 by Senator Trent Garner. An act to designate an official state firearm, to designate the shotgun as the official state firearm and for other purposes. That's kind of the same. You guys kind of feel the same way about that, right?
Basically, yes. And like I say, we don't oppose it, but neither are we involved in trying to support this and calling our legislators to support this. To us, it's just not that of an important issue to be bothering our legislators to vote yay or nay on these two bills when we have bills that are very pressing that definitely changes the lives of Arkansans.
Yeah. I will say in this particular bill by Senator Garner on the shotgun,
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
For those of you who are traveling the roads of Little Rock right now, we did just get a call from a listener. Joe is just telling me that there are reports of an accident on 440, so be careful. I pulled up the Arkansas Democrat Gazette live traffic map, and sure enough, it is it's showing up very slow, if not stopped in some places. Anyway, so there's an accident there if you want to avoid that. All right, let's get to it, shall we? This is fascinating to me. This is always this is right on time. Let me say this. Arkansas student suspended for Confederate flag sweater. This is right on time. Now, what do you mean by that? Well, let me get you. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you what I mean by that here in a minute. I'll give you some context here in a minute. But let's get to the actual story of what happened. Fayetteville High School, a student there has now been suspended for donning a Confederate flag sweatshirt. Reported first by KARK, the students wore the apparel to support the History, Not Hate movement. So history, not hate. It's also similar to what I heard growing up, which is about, it's about heritage. That's what you would hear when you would see the Confederate battle flag being waved. Students were given the choice to remove the apparel or be suspended. At this time, one student has received out-of-school suspension. The History Not Hate movement perpetuates the idea that the Confederate flag is an emblem of Southern pride rather than a symbol for racism. The social media-based movement largely relies on hashtag activism to spread this message. The movement has gained momentum in response to pressures to remove Confederate statues across the South. Only a year and a half ago, protests historically erupted in Charlottesville, Virginia, over a debate to remove a statue of General Robert E. Lee, who led the Confederate Army. On Monday, Mississippi and Alabama officials celebrated Robert E. Lee Day in conjunction with Martin Luther King Jr. Day. What does the flag mean? All right, so here's the deal. Now, we didn't celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Robert E. Lee Day on the same day, because 2 years ago, Republicans attempted to prove to the media that they are not racist. 2 years ago, Republicans attempted to prove to the media they are not racist by separating, genius idea, separating Robert E. Lee Day from Martin Luther King Day, separating the two holidays. So you don't celebrate the same two men, a black guy and a white guy. You'd never want to do that on the same day. Now, I don't know about you, but it was a genius move because it pacified the left. It satisfied the left. And now, thanks to Arkansas Republicans and what they did with Robert E. Lee Day and Martin Luther King Day, the media, they no longer think Republicans are racist. Did you know that? Yeah. They no longer think Republicans are racist at all because the Republicans took it upon themselves to prove to the media, we are not the party of racism. We're not the party of bigotry, because even progressives now, they were satisfied. And you know what? Now, because we did that, we have solved problems and ended disagreements, and everything is fantastic in this country. Okay, so that's not true. I'm making a point, and let me tell you what I mean by this is right on time. Last session, there was a bill filed to remove one of the stars on the Arkansas flag. This was an effort because one of those stars stands for the Confederacy. We have Civil War statues on the grounds of the Capitol. It's only a matter, in my opinion, it's only a matter of time. And when you give ground, when you say, well, let's do this, let's separate these days, you're never going to satisfy these people. You're never, and it might have been a fine idea to do it, but many people do it in an effort to accept the media narrative that, well, you know what, if Republicans do this, oh my gosh, it'll give them all this credit, and they'll be able to say, see, we're not. Republicans, let me just newsflash, Republicans are not racist. It's not what they're about. The Democrat Party is the party of slavery. It's the Democrat Party that still continues their claim to this day. They believe they get to decide who are people and who are not people based on, now it's abortion. You're not a person if you're in the womb. You are a person if you're outside the room. That's what the Democrat Party believes. And so anyway, you try to play their game. Oh, and by the way, did you hear what New York did? The New York, it was disgusting. They now think, passed out of the New York State Senate, that you can now carry a baby to term and get an abortion, and it's not murder. The state of New York is now, I'm telling you right now, we need the Supreme Court to reverse Roe versus Wade more than ever. The state of New York, I feel so sorry for the people there, just in terms of the some people like, my friend Dan Wass, who's, author of the book Good Guy or a Bad Guy. I can't ever remember how to say it, but you know what it is. Good gun, bad guy. That's what it is. He's up there. He's a conservative, but then his state is voting to murder babies all the way up to term, all the way up to. It's just insane to me. It's an unholy land, New York is. Telephone number, ladies and gentlemen, is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you So anyway, this is right on time. I mean, I don't know if there'll be more push to do something like this, but there's just more and more people that really want to tear down statues. They want to edit history in the quest of somehow perfecting man. But if we can tear down Confederate statues, if we can rename this whatever the star stands for the Arkansas flag, we'll be the better for it. And that's just not the case. You'll never satisfy these people. I mean, think about what's happened in the last 2 years. Things are so much worse. Think about the Covington High School boys. Think about what the media is doing to them, still doing to them, some of them. Of course, now these media figures are probably going to get sued if they don't issue a retraction and delete their tweets. Have you heard about this? Good for whoever that attorney is. Good for him. Something's got to be done. The hatred for Donald Trump from the left is so high that they're willing to do whatever they can. And even Joy Behar on The View admitted it. Why didn't we wait for all the facts to come in? Whoopi Goldberg asked. Joy Behar says, well, it's because we want Donald Trump out. We want to get Donald Trump, and that's why. The ends justify the means for the left. In other Arkansas news, a Senate tax committee got underway. The Senate Tax and Revenue Committee met in an organizational meeting on Wednesday. They're expected to be very busy this session, debating various tax reform proposals, income taxes, highway taxes, internet sales taxes, other tax measures may be heard in the coming weeks. The committee passed their rules and heard from the Bureau of Legislative Research, the Department of Finance and Administration. The task force has met for the past year and a half, researching tax reform. They released draft legislation and fiscal impact statements of proposals they have endorsed ahead of the session. Those plans, combined with the governor's draft plan that was released, would result in a net tax increase in the first fiscal year, according to DFNA fiscal impact statements. Since the draft legislation has been released, it was discovered the governor's income tax proposal would have raised income taxes on 200,000 filers. The governor has decided to redo the plan to ensure that no filers see an increase on their income taxes. I was sitting in the old Supreme Court room yesterday just thinking to myself, I think a lot of these people, things are kind of moving very slow this week. They were kind of expected to pick up a little bit. I think it's because people are trying to figure out what they're actually going may or may not be included in the same income tax legislation. The vast majority of items before the tax committee will have a fiscal impact statement. DFNA was on hand to explain how those statements are completed. According to Paul Gehring of DFNA, they read every bill that is filed in the General Assembly and they read every bill and identify those that need a fiscal impact. DFNA uses various sources to issue their estimates. These include past actual returns filed, other government statistical information from nonprofits and third-party sources. Gehring stated that the goal was for the most accurate revenue impacts, but acknowledged that they are just estimates. Gehring also explained how the estimates are static, meaning not dynamic, and thus they do not try to account for an economy or economic changes that may come into the future, meaning growth. They also look at the U.S. Supreme Court rulings so as not to run afoul of their precedents. Gehring commented that they would not speak on the individual merits of the bill and whether or not it's good or bad policy, but instead to make sure that the legislators have the best revenue estimates. Committee Chair Senator Jonathan Dismang commented, you know what, can I stop here for a second on the Dismang thing? It is at least good that the chair of the Senate Revenue and Tax Committee is not, doesn't have tax problems. That's a good thing, right? That as far as we know, he's paid his taxes, unlike the previous chairman, convict Senator Jake Files, who's in jail. Dismang commented that DFNA does oppose bills, though they may not line up with the planned budget. Gehring clarified that they would oppose bills that did not fit into the governor's budget. At the beginning of the meeting, Senator Dismang said legislation with revenue impacts would be held until later in the session so that they could have a better picture of how it might impact the budget. Those bills held may be voted on as a package later in the session. Interesting. Richard Wilson of the Bureau of Legislative Research presented the most recent revenue report to the committee. In the first 6 months of the net revenue to the state government, it was $163.2 million above the same 6-month period the year prior, a growth rate of 6.1% in revenue. It's pretty fantastic. If you're the government. So there's that. Also, the Senate yesterday in Arkansas approved a new Veterans Task Force. The Arkansas State Senate on Wednesday passed legislation to form a new task force on Veterans Affairs. It was SB 4, sponsored by Senator Trent Garner, who is a former soldier, who is a veteran. The task force would operate similar to the recent tax task force. According to Senator Garner, the task force would help veterans receive the services they need. Senator Garner specifically pointed to the suicide rate among veterans. According to Garner, 22 veterans die by suicide each year. He actually told a story from the well about some contact that he had with a veteran who was suicidal, and the stuff that he did in an effort to get him the proper help, call the authorities, let somebody intervene. The task force would include 28 members from the House and Senate. These would include the President Pro Temp of the Senate, a Senate co-chair, 6 Senate members, Speaker of the House, a House co-chair, and 18 House members. The task force would have authorization and funding to meet around the state, to have town halls, to hear from veterans. Garner is a veteran himself, serving 2 tours in Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom as a Special Forces Green Beret. So anyway, that is the news out of the Senate. And then here we go here. I want to end this segment by focusing on a story written back on the 22nd. Focus on legislative leaders as session begins. Leaders other than those of us who spend time in the state capitol and the political junkies who listen in over the internet. Maybe it's not the most entertaining or consequential thing taking place, but if you are interested in Arkansas politics, the speeches are a good indication of the tone that will be set by the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President Pro Temp of the Senate. These speeches last week by Speaker Matthew Shepard and President Pro Temp Jim Hendren were interesting because of the contrast and focus. Much of Speaker Shepard's focus was on being thankful. He began by expressing his thanks to God. He continued with a long list of thanks ranging from his family, due to the people of his district, to his fellow legislators who entrusted him with the office of the Speaker. And he reminded his fellow representatives to be thankful for the people who gave them the opportunity to serve in the House. Service was the other major theme of his speech. I want to remind you what he said because I still am such a fan of what he said personally. Too often, he said, I believe we've allowed the supposed significance of our position to go to our heads, that we've confused political challenges with real-world challenges, that we've expected everything to go our way around here. But truthfully, we're not entitled to anything. We come, we work for, the people of Arkansas, and that this institution, the People's House, is not here for us. I believe we will come a lot closer to meeting the expectations for which Arkansans 145 years ago thanked God for the privilege of choosing. In short, our service is not about me. It's not about you. It's about the people of Arkansas. Really well said. Pretty awesome if legislators live up to that, regardless of political ideology. It should be a good legislative session. The President Pro Temp, Jim Hendren, also mentioned being thankful and to focus on service, but he had something else on his mind: Senate corruption and the resulting criticism from the public. Using these themes as the backdrop, his was a circle the wagon speech to rally the senators to him. Hendren's enemy in the speech was the demons of supposed organizations on the left and right who think all senators are bad people. Quote, in fact, we have some organizations on the left and the right that are obsessed with feeding the hatred that many have for those in public service. They would have you believe that the legislature is a wholly corrupt institution run by corrupt, evil people. Let me be very clear about this point. The notion that all members are corrupt is a lie. Those that would portray us all as corrupt, self-serving politicians are pandering to the worst in people, end quote. What the heck is he talking about? Maybe in his mind, any criticism of legislation, criticism of deception or deceptive methods to pass legislation, or any mention of ethics loopholes equals an attack on all legislators. Despite a bit of bunker mentality in the speech, to Hendren's credit, he did raise the Senate's tarnished reputation as an issue, which is a positive step. Several recent convictions, guilty pleas, and indictments have had as their focus state senators. Quote, while we cannot change the events that occurred, we can learn from them. We can certainly control the events that happened from here forward. To all of us here today, the 92nd General Assembly, let us begin this session of the General Assembly today with a determination that the culture of greed and corruption is over. We will not participate in it. We will not ignore it, and we will not tolerate those who do. Hendren went overboard in trying to distinguish the current membership from the bad eggs we have had by reading about that we've been reading about, rather, in the press. Unfortunately, the work of the legislature is charged with doing what they've been charged with doing has been overshadowed with several years of mistakes, misdeeds, corruption, and even illegal actions by a small but not negligible group of our former colleagues. What was not acknowledged in the speech is that the culture of corruption continued because many good legislators were too hesitant to insist on stricter ethics disclosure laws and laws to prohibit self-dealing by public officials. It is good that Hendren is talking about reforming the Senate. Hopefully the focus won't just be on mere self-monitoring by the Senate. We are still hopeful that the legislature will pass meaningful reform by requiring by law that Medicaid providers disclose financial relationships with legislators. Senator Hendren voted against the disclosure requirement for Medicaid providers in 2017, but we hope the events of the last 2 years have changed his mind, and he will push passage of the requirement and prohibiting by law legislator attorneys and legislator consultants from representing clients before the legislature. Senator Hendren voted for a bill to prohibit such self-dealing in 2017, but the bill did not pass the Senate. The speeches, though, show a strong contrast in focus and style of these leaders, yet they will likely agree on most issues. Remember, the House and the Senate agree on over 1,000 new laws every regular session. For example, in 2017 regular session, there were 1,127 new laws that were passed. It's another great story up at conduitforaction.org. Folks, we're going to reset here, take a break, be back in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
If you read Section 1, the changes, what they're adding here is legislative findings and intent. The General Assembly finds that the right to hunt, fish, trap, and harvest wildlife is a right guaranteed by the Arkansas Constitution. For some reason, the Arkansas Game and Fish pops into my mind when I read that.
Right. Exactly. It's almost kind of like Robin Hood. Are we really allowed to hunt in the King's Forest, without his permission?
Right.
And so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, 18 the King's meat. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I've often wondered, and I think maybe there was, they remake Robin Hood. Hollywood remakes Robin Hood like every 2 years. So in one of the renditions, I think they talked about how, these deer and the wildlife and things like that are God's gift to man. Like,
determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
And welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. I just want you to know we can't do the program without you listening every single day. Yeah, so we've got this stuff with the President Donald Trump, the State of the Union won't happen until after the shutdown ends. We have Nancy Pelosi. Trump was basically trying to clarify, Nancy, are you going to ban me or not? Because I fully intend to honor your initial invitation. And the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, saying, basically, no, you're not allowed in the chamber. And so here we go. This truly is the state of our union, by the way. You want to know the state of our union? This is it. We are so divided as a nation. We have divided government. And the Democrats hate President Trump so much that they are moving to make history by not allowing him to give the State of the Union, which in and of itself tells you what the state of our union is. It is not good. We are not functioning. And this is the shutdown, and this is the state. This has been the state of our union for a while, but our politicians have hidden it from us. And it's taken President Trump to actually reveal the truth. If you don't have a secure border and control who comes in and who doesn't, you don't have a nation. We've got one more hour coming your way next. Don't go anywhere.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
If you read Section 1, the changes, what they're adding here is legislative findings and intent. The General Assembly finds that the right to hunt, fish, trap, and harvest wildlife is a right guaranteed by the Arkansas Constitution. For some reason, the Arkansas Game and Fish pops into my mind when I read that.
Right. Exactly. It's almost kind of like Robin Hood. Are we really allowed to hunt in the king's forest? Without his permission.
Right.
And so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, 18 the king's meat. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah, I've often wondered, and I think maybe there was they remake Robin Hood. Hollywood remakes Robin Hood like every 2 years. So in one of the renditions.
Right.
In one of the renditions, I think they talked about how these deer and the wildlife and things like that are God's gift to man, like all of men, before like it's government's responsibility. And of course, that's something that is not. We do not see that in our. We do not see that in Arkansas or really any state. I mean, we have the Arkansas Game and Fish. They constitutionally exist, and they're the most, in my opinion, the most powerful agency in the state, and there really has not been any stomach to try to curb some of their power. There have been some court decisions that have weakened their power in the last couple of years, which has been good.
And that's something that may be coming down the pike, later on down in the future. But that's something that we're going to keep a close eye on.
Yeah. Well, I think for the liberty of the people, definitely. Then there's House Bill 1036. Let me stop before we get to House Bill 1036. I think and maybe I'm wrong here, Dan, but back to the Game and Fish, I think it could be very simple. I think if you elected your Game and Fish, wardens or whatever they're called, if the people elected them, I think things might be a little bit different. But that's just me.
That's a pretty good idea. I kind of like that myself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why that. I mean, you're giving somebody authority over like the region of wildlife that people. I mean, and I just think especially hunters and people who are actually, out in the wilderness and foraging and things like that. I think they should have a direct say as to who's going to be enforcing these laws. But that's just me.
Sure.
Yeah. So House Bill 1036. Tell us about House Bill 1036. There's a lot of co-sponsors on this one to reduce the cost of concealed carry. What are your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the decision of Taft versus the state of Arkansas, I think that has an impact upon it. What that bill is going to do is reduce the cost of the concealed carry permit, and it needs to be reduced. But one thing that we want to stress is that people who are purchasing the concealed carry permit needs to understand that Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. I was talking to some coworkers yesterday about this bill, and they still didn't know the law in Arkansas, and I was able to enlighten them on the law, and they were shocked. They said, "You mean we can actually carry a weapon in Arkansas without a permit?" I said, yes, we are constitutional carry. Now, if you so desire to have the permit for reciprocity, then so be it. Go ahead. And there's actually a bill coming out that's going to reduce the cost, and it should be reduced. And so, once again, coming from the standpoint of a group that supports constitutional carry, sure, it's a wonderful thing to reduce the cost of a concealed carry permit, but we're not going to, just get behind anything that deals with concealed carry when we are fighting not only in this state, but we would love to see across the nation for states to follow like suit of being constitutional carry and having that type of reciprocity, such as in Oklahoma, if our Attorney General will come out and publicly recognize that we are a constitutional carry state, then Oklahoma will recognize that, and I can carry in Oklahoma in the same manner that I carry in Arkansas. That's what we really need.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We need that, and the Taft decision is clear. The judge read the law as is. I mean, it's verifying everything the Patriots of Act 746 has been saying for 5 years.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Hour number 2, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. We're so glad that you're with us. Hey, we're in the middle of our the 92nd General Assembly and our coverage of that. We're broadcasting on site in Little Rock at 101.1. The Answer, our affiliate here. We really appreciate them carrying the program. We're going to take a little bit of a break from that. I want to introduce you to the first time on the program. We have Mr. Norman Rogers is on the program with us. Norman, are you there, sir?
I am. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, absolutely. It's always great to have you on. You have a book. You're a retired physicist, author of a book called Dumb Energy, A Critique of Wind and Solar Energy. What made you want to write that book, sir?
Well, I've been studying green energy for a while, and I just wanted to set the record straight. Absolutely useless. They're not cheaper than the existing sources of energy, and there's really no reason to be building them.
Okay, so dumb energy. Wind and solar energy have negative economic value. How is that? That's not what we hear. We hear that it's the future and that we need to subsidize it because of evil, oil companies or whatever.
Well, that's why they have negative economic value, because they're heavily subsidized. Either wind or solar is subsidized approximately 70%. So if these things are so wonderful, how come we have to subsidize 70% of the cost?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. What about, and they also kill birds, right?
Yeah, actually both of them can kill birds, but the windmills are the big ones. Those blades are moving 200 miles an hour, and if the bird gets in the way of the blade, they can't get out of the way in time.
How does a solar panel kill a bird?
Well, the solar panel type, called the photovoltaic solar, doesn't really kill birds much. It's called the thermal solar that kills the birds, where they have a large number of mirrors that direct the sun towards the tower, and the intensity of the light at that tower is very high. So if the bird flies into that region, the poor bird catches on fire.
Oh, wow. Well, gosh. Okay, so we're trying to save the planet. That's what the left is trying to do with all of this stuff. But that they're also, they're also killing wildlife, which you'd think they'd be upset about. But and I know some of them are. But that's pretty interesting to me. Extensive lobbying and outright propaganda has convinced the public that it's a good idea to spend billions on this dumb wind and solar energy. The facts and figures in this book, it's easily understood format. So, I mean, your book here, again, Dumb Energy, A Critique of Wind and Solar. I mean, you expose all that. So you think a lot of these politicians have these ideas and vote the way they do because of
and also the environmental groups are another sort of industry, and they have a big stake in this, and so they constantly propagandize the public with the idea that the wind and solar is cheap because they say how much it costs after you've applied the subsidies. Yeah, it's a hoax, basically.
It's a hoax, and yet you have the darling of the left, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, calling for a new Green Deal or a green revolution. What are your thoughts on that, Norman?
Well, I think she should go back to bartending. I don't know what would be accomplished by a new Green Deal other than wasting a lot of money and enriching the people selling windmills and solar. If these people were really concerned about emissions of carbon dioxide changing the climate, they would be promoting nuclear, because nuclear, unlike wind and solar, nuclear is reliable energy that you can count on. It doesn't have to be backed up. And nuclear doesn't emit any carbon dioxide. And by the way, some of the biggest proponents of global warming are in favor of nuclear. But by and large, the left hates nuclear for some reason.
Well, so yeah, tell me about the carbon dioxide, because I see here that are you affiliated or a member of the CO2 Coalition? What's the CO2 Coalition?
Yes, the CO2 Coalition is a group that is promoting the benefits of carbon dioxide. As I think everyone knows, plants breathe in carbon dioxide, and for plants, carbon dioxide is like oxygen for us. They have to have it to grow. And there's not very much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So if you enrich the atmosphere with more carbon dioxide, plants grow better, and also you need less water. And as a result of the 30% increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in the last 30 years or so, we've seen desert degreening and improved productivity in agriculture. You may not know it, but most greenhouses include carbon dioxide generators because the carbon dioxide makes their plants grow faster.
You know, it's basic science. I mean, I remember it Biology 101, and I was like, wow, it's such a great symbiotic relationship. You know, they need the stuff that I breathe out, and I need the stuff that they put out, you know? And yet, Norman, can you talk a little bit about, we're talking with Norman Rogers. He's a retired physicist, author of the book, Dumb Energy, A Critique of Wind and Solar Energy. Norman, can you talk a little bit about, like, facts and how we get to a consensus? Because, I mean, we're in a situation where, you know, some people call it a post-truth world. We have people that would just outright reject what you just said. And because first of all, they've never heard it. They never taught it. But then we have these other academics that would disagree with you. I agree with you, but I'm just, you know, I'm frustrated. I think the entire country, the entire world is frustrated by the idea that we can't come to consensus. You're saying the complete opposite of what the mainstream media would say and of what, you know, half the country would say.
Yes, I'm not alone in saying this, by the way. There are plenty of skeptics of global warming. It's not an easy thing to debunk passionately held beliefs. Most people are not really interested in a logical analysis if they've already come to the conclusion that this or that is true. Part of the problem is that the people who we should be trusting, the scientific establishment, has a financial stake in this. The problem is that if you predict a catastrophe or a disaster, it gets you a lot of attention, it gets you money. So there's a real bias towards overselling ideas, and certainly global warming has been oversold. And this is something that President Eisenhower worried about in his farewell speech 50 years or so ago. He was worried that the scientific establishment would start trying to influence federal policy because federal money is what they lived on. Or at least greatly exaggerating the science in order to get more money, more support from the federal government. All the predictions of global warming are based on computer models of the atmosphere, and the predictions have been consistently wrong. They've been consistently greatly exaggerated.
You know, it's interesting that you talk about the monetary aspect here, and that the socialist left that loves this idea of climate change. Ocasio-Cortez thinks everything's going to end in 12, 13 years. And yet the scientists producing the research fueling all of this nonsense are actually capitalists in a way. And I think that's pretty ironic.
Yeah. And not just the scientists, the environmental organizations. The environmental organizations need a parade of catastrophes to keep things going, to get people interested, to get attention. And if you look at the last 50 years or so, there have been a parade of catastrophes like, DDT is going to poison our soil, or acid rain is going to destroy the forests and the crops. It goes on and on. And global warming, which is now called climate change, is the kind of the latest one. And one sign of hope is that these catastrophes tend to peter out after a while because people just become bored with it, and also they notice that the predictions are not coming true. So I do think that eventually the climate change is going to peter out. It already has petered out in the sense that they used to call it global warming, and because there wasn't any global warming, or not very much, they changed the name to climate change. So, yeah.
Well, why are all of their solutions to deal with this non-issue? Why are all their solutions socialism? I mean, that's always their idea is essentially to have more control and less freedom. Those are their solutions, you know?
Yeah, well, certainly the people who are in favor of expanding the government and running everything from Washington like the climate catastrophe story because it gives an excuse for more centralization and more socialism.
Wow. We're talking with Norman Rogers, again, a retired physicist. The book is called Dumb Energy, A Critique of Wind and Solar Energy. You also are, have you taught in academia? Is that what I'm reading here?
No, not really.
No, I'm reading your credentials here. So you have a BA in physics from the University of California, Berkeley, and MS in physics from the University of Hawaii. Okay, that's what I'm reading here. But you've worked for IBM, Hewlett Packard, and other organizations. The Heartland Institute here, I feel like I'm reading here is an associated organization, which is really, really good. And again, that CO2 coalition, I love that name because people probably think it's it's like a pro global warming thing, but yet you guys are talking about, you guys are big proponents of CO2. I think that's fantastic. And can you talk a little bit about CO2 and how CO2 levels don't drive temperature? Most people think that they do.
Well, from first physical principles, you would expect CO2 to have some influence on the temperature. And the question really is how much. The proponents of catastrophic global warming claim that the effect of CO2 suffers from strong positive feedback. So if CO2 were to cause a degree of warming, that might be multiplied by a factor of 3. The theory being that if you have a little bit of warming, it puts more water vapor in the atmosphere, and that creates yet more warming. They even sometimes say it could be runaway warming, but none of that's panned out. They have tests to see if this feedback exists, and they haven't been able to find a good evidence for it. The computer models they use to predict the future, the computer models don't even agree with each other.
Yeah,
they have huge disagreements.
Back to the point of your book, the critique of wind and solar energy. I mean, what do we do if it's cloudy, and what do we do if the wind doesn't blow?
Yeah, what we do is we fire up a backup plant, which is usually a natural gas plant, to fill in the gap. And that's why wind and solar are not economic, because if you build wind and solar installations, you have to have a whole parallel installation of probably a natural gas plant to back up the wind or solar. Solar in particular doesn't work at all at night. So that's the fallacy of trying to have 100% solar. You can't do it because you have to have something else at night.
Yeah, and then, I remember real quickly Solyndra under the Obama administration. You had a campaign bundler for Obama that ended up getting, $500 million for Solyndra. Then it went bankrupt. And then, they had the video of the warehouse workers throwing away all of these solar panels, breaking them, throwing them in a dumpster because it was more economic to throw them away than to store them and pay the storage fee. You remember that?
Yeah, I hadn't seen that video, but I'm not surprised. If you go down to Palm Springs, a lot of people don't remember back in the 70s when we had the oil price crisis. There was a big move towards wind and solar back then. And in Palm Springs, there's all these wind farm graveyards where you have old broken down windmills that were built back in the 70s to generate electricity and then abandoned after a while.
Wow. Well, Norman Rogers, retired physicist, author of the book Dumb Energy, a critique of wind and solar energy. We appreciate you coming on the program, spending some time with us this morning, sir, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
All righty. Folks, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back in just a moment. We thank you so much for listening. This is
what I would also really like, and maybe this is a baby step, but it'd be great if there was a piece of legislation filed, and I don't know if this would be a bill or it would just be some sort of joint resolution that encourages the Arkansas State Police to market their concealed handgun license as a reciprocity license. So to admit we're a constitutional carry state, but then say, but you still need, and tell people they need it if they want to travel outside the state of Arkansas and protect their family and their possessions on the roads. I think that's such a winner. I mean, that is a winning if you'll just admit the law is what it is, whether you like it or not.
Right.
And you will, start marketing it towards people who want to protect their families when they travel outside the border. That is a genuine service the Arkansas State Police would be providing the people of Arkansas, and people would still go and they'd go get their concealed carry license. So it'd be great if the legislature,
Absolutely.
and I don't know if that's an actual bill or some resolution. I'd prefer to have.
Every single hour, there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
You know what I thought was one of the highlights of yesterday as I was listening to the Arkansas Senate, Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin gaveling everybody in, beginning the session. And then they started like they always do, with a prayer. Democrat Senator Larry Teague, he said this prayer yesterday, and I wanted to share it with you.
The sunshine and the warm days. We thank you for the rain and the cold days. We thank you, Lord, for creation, the magnificence of it. Lord, we pray for our friends today. Keep us safe. Help us to make good decisions. Lord, we pray for our great state. Guide our leaders and keep us moving in the right direction. We pray for our country, Lord, and her leaders, and we ask you to keep them moving in the right direction, Lord. We pray that all our actions might further your kingdom here on earth. Forgive us of our sins. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
And they say the pledge. I thought to myself, wow, that's good. We thank you for the sunny days, the warm days. We also thank you for the cold days and the rainy days. We thank you for creation itself, and help us make the right decisions here. What a good mentality to have. What a good mentality. I'll share that with you. Of course, the House, they do prayers as well. You know, they've got I think they have guest clergy, you know, from each representative's district or whatever. I think that they kind of have something like that going on. But just really good stuff. Really good stuff. I wanted to share that with you today. Let's see here. I want to remind everybody that today at 10 o'clock in the House, State Representative Stephen Meeks, according to what I have heard, should be running his bill to regulate microchip implants. Now, some people have expressed, they don't like the title because they think the title leads people to believe that they're about to vote for microchipping. No, that's not it at all. As a matter of fact, I heard that the interview that Stephen Meeks did with this program a couple of days ago helped a lot of legislators understand what the bill was, what the bill isn't, if you will, what the bill is, what the bill isn't. But I'm just interested to see, if there is going to be any sort of, debate on it and that sort of thing. So the idea here is that you have people overseas that are starting to microchip. You got people in Wisconsin that are starting to microchip their employees. And if you want to do that voluntarily, I suppose that's fine. That's your prerogative. But Stephen Meeks is saying, hey, look, I don't think employees should be forced to take a chip, and that we might need to do something about that. I find it fascinating. It certainly is forward thinking. It's trying to, get out in front of a potential problem when it might come. Because, folks, I'm telling you, the more convenient technology is, the more report here that BuzzFeed, the news organization, if you can call it that was slapped down last week after Robert Mueller came out and rebuked their story and said their report that Trump told his lawyer to lie to Congress was not accurate. According to new reports, the internet news company BuzzFeed will lay off 15% of its workers in response to growing financial pressure and probably a credibility crisis. Breitbart reports that BuzzFeed, which produces both lighthearted viral content as well as reporting in its news department, has long been thought of as an internet media success story. However, there have been major issues for online news companies over the last year or so, as many have struggled to keep up with Facebook's algorithms and make enough money to support large staffs with small profit margins. The New York Times reports that BuzzFeed, often hailed as the future of publishing and a leading producer of digital content, plans to lay off 15% of its workforce, or about 200 employees, according to a memo sent to the staff on Wednesday night. The move is meant to trim costs and maintain growth as the company aims to hit profitability this year. I don't know. What do you think it has anything to do with the fact that they just had a bad week last week? I mean, I know they probably got a lot of clicks, but my goodness. I mean, who's going to trust their news department ever again? Who's going to do it? Who's going to trust their news department ever again? All right, folks, we're up against a hard break. We're going to be right back here in just a moment. I want to introduce you to the Faulkner County Circuit Clerk. We'll be talking with Crystal Taylor in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
You know, what I would also really like, and maybe this is a baby step, but it'd be great if there was a piece of legislation filed, and I don't know if this would be a bill or it would just be some sort of joint resolution that encourages the Arkansas State Police to market their concealed handgun license as a reciprocity license. So to admit we're a constitutional carry state, but then say, but you still need, and tell people they need it, if they want to travel outside the state of Arkansas and protect their family and their possessions on the roads. I think that's such a winner. I mean, that is a winning if you'll just admit the law is what it is, whether you like it or not.
Right.
And you will, start marketing it towards people who want to protect their families when they travel outside the border. That is a genuine service the Arkansas State Police would be providing the people of Arkansas, and people would still go and they'd go get their concealed carry license. So it'd be great if the legislature, and I don't know if that's an actual bill or some resolution. I'd prefer it to have teeth, but that's where they need to go. I hear. I don't understand why they just won't do that.
Well, the thing is we do have that. We have legislation that declares Arkansas as a constitutional carry state. And so why will they not just come out and do, as you have said? I echo what you have said. If they would just come out and say, look, we are constitutional carry, but we still offer the concealed handgun carry license in case you want to travel out of state, if you're going into states that still requires a permit, then go ahead. We are going to offer this service to you so when you travel that you can have reciprocity and so you can feel safe to carry a weapon while you are to defend your family if necessary. If they would say that, we would sing their praises. Thank you for finally recognizing the law and doing the right thing and reducing your fees.
Yeah.
That would be a wonderful thing, Paul.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe there's an amendment. You could put an amendment in something like this. That'd be nice.
I would like to see that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's HB 1036. Moving on now to State Representative Aaron Pilkington's bill, House Bill 1059. Sir. Tell us about House Bill 1059, Dan Borum.
House Bill 1059. If you have, I encourage everybody to go out and read that bill in ArcLeg. Pull it up, the PDF, and read through it several times. And study it. I need to read it even more, and to gain a real good understanding of it, and possibly talk with Aaron if I can get the opportunity. I know he's very busy, but what we have is in our home or our curtilage, we already have in.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us this morning, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. I want to welcome to the program for the first time. We have the Faulkner County Circuit Clerk on the line. Crystal Taylor is with us. Crystal, how are you this morning?
Doing great, Paul. How are you this morning?
Doing fantastic. I'm glad that you could spend some time with us. So tell us, I wanted to talk just a little bit about, I'm really fascinated with local government, especially people who, go into local government and, make conservative changes. And so, Crystal, you've actually already done your first term, right? And you're starting on your second term. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments of your first term when you got into that office. Were there things that you kind of had to take charge of and do things differently?
Yes, definitely. In going in, of course, I didn't know all of what to expect. But as with, any other business, I've owned and managed my own businesses before. So you just kind of have to get in there and see how things are functioning. And sometimes it takes a little while to just analyze the processes and how things are being done to see what you can do to make it better. So I went into the office and kept all of the existing staff in going in. And I did have one resign right before I took office, and decided not to refill that position just to see kind of where we were at and see if I really even needed to refill that position. So kind of went in with that thought in mind. I knew as a business owner, I wanted to be able to see the expenses and the revenues coming in and going out. So I did a few changes in the office as far as taking over those responsibilities and duties for myself, and kind of doing a little restructuring. So started there and started learning, what expenses were already kind of set up and existing in the office, and just started making changes here and there. All of my positions, I actually let go of about, I want to say close to 5 full-time positions in the first year and a half, and that was mainly all due through attrition, people retiring and different things like that. And we just kind of reevaluated those positions as that happened and said, hey, what were the duties that were being performed in this position, and is that something that we can take on with our existing staff as opposed to adding a new position? So with all that being done and through some different efficiency projects that we implemented in 2017 and 2018, we were able to cut the budget by over $200,000, and I think that was an actual decrease of pretty close to 20% of the total budget.
Wow. And is a lot of that savings from the attrition, from saying, hey, listen, we don't need to rehire these positions, we can do the work ourselves?
That was probably the biggest majority of it, but we did do a lot of projects in 2017 and 2018, just trying to get rid of some paper processes, and paper is kind of something that you think of as being probably small if you look, at the price of a page of paper. But when you have a lot of volume, that can add up to quite a bit of savings. So we were evaluating processes, and I even had my staff actually helping me to review processes. And I told them, I said, let's just think about this, and let's say, do I really have to print this out? Or is this something I'm just printing, keeping for a little while, and then turning around and shredding it? Because some of that is, and we actually won 4 government efficiency awards in 2017 for a copy accounting system that we developed on an existing copier. So there was no cost involved in implementing it, just an idea and a vision. And then we also bought a $200 Adobe program, which has no feature fees. That saved us, I think it saved us somewhere over $2,000 in paper processes, and we were able to implement some other processes and save even more. So, just evaluating paper processes and the way we were doing things, we were able to cut a whole lot more as well.
That's fantastic. And see, this is why I wanted to have Crystal on. Folks, we're talking with Crystal Taylor. She's the Faulkner County Circuit Clerk, and she saved a ton of money in that department. And one of the reasons she did it, I think so, this is speculative, but I'm going to ask you, Crystal, is it because you said you're a business owner? Tell us Tell us what your business is and tell us how that affects you as a government worker in terms of, how you looked at the way government should run as opposed to the way it typically does,
Yeah, so I'd always worked in the private industry, and we owned and managed several businesses. But just going way back, to give you a little background on myself, I obtained a bachelor's degree in operations management through John Brown University, and then went on to University of Fayetteville and received a master's degree in operations management. So I've got a lot of educational background in efficiency and processes. But then also I had a financial background. I worked for a bank for 7.5 years, and you learn a lot about saving money and being good with your credit and things of that nature during that time. And then later I went on to become an oil and gas landman, where I actually went to all the circuit clerk's offices across the state, researching title from surface all the way back to patent, doing mineral searches and all of that. So that's kind of where my background was coming in. Now, businesses we've owned, we actually own and manage rental properties. We have that company. And then our oil and gas experience, we actually manage all the Fayetteville Shell here in Central Arkansas for Southwestern Energy. We bought all the right-of-way for that entire project and worked for them for over 12 years. Later, after that kind of went down, we owned a restaurant for a couple of years, which it was kind of short-lived, but we learned a lot about cost savings and things like that. If you ever own a restaurant, you will find out ways of becoming very efficient. I promise you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the efficiency that the taxpayers certainly want. Excuse me, you don't have to name any names, but you're setting the bar kind of high for other departments. I'm sure in Faulkner County, you get any pushback or dirty looks?
I don't think so. I've never tried to point fingers or, to do.
Yes.
And to do the very best job that I can do. So I'm hoping that, I haven't stepped on any toes or anything like that. And I don't believe I have. If anything, what I would rather see happen is for people to kind of open their eyes to what running an efficient government office could be. And hopefully people will want to start evaluating their process of the way they've always done things and become more efficient and, kind of follow in those footsteps would be great. I mean, I hope to create a team atmosphere rather than, hey, I'm doing this and you're doing that. I've never been one to do that at all. I hope to create a positive environment that other people would want to follow.
Yeah,
well.
Absolutely. We're talking again with Crystal Taylor, Faulkner County Circuit Clerk. She's made some big savings, $200,000 in budget savings. Crystal, you got any plans to find even more efficiencies now that you're in your second term?
Definitely. I was just talking to my staff as we were heading into the second term, and I told them, I said, hey, we won 4 government efficiency awards in 2017. This year we won the grand prize. In 2018, it was the Business Service Award for our electronic land record system that we brought to Faulkner County, because we're online, what they call e-recording. So we're paperless now. And we're paperless with our court filings, and we're paperless with our land filings. So basically, we're completely electronic, which we're backing up that data not only here but in another state. So we've got all these backup plans, and we've got a new veterans program, which I'd love for people to go check out at www.faulknercounty.org. Basically, local businesses can go on there and they can put their logo and information and offer any type of discount for a veteran, and they can get free advertisement on our website there. There's no fee to the businesses. It's our way of supporting local businesses and also supporting our veterans. Veterans can come in with a DD-214. We file that for free for them, so it's made available for their family in the future if they need it. And also we create them a photo ID that they can take to local businesses and get discounts. So, but we are definitely focused. I told them, I said, we've got, after the first 2 years, it was just kind of a whirlwind with everything we accomplished. We've got a lot to do now because we kind of set the bar high in that first term. So we're already looking at efficiency projects and making plans and trying to, shrink the paper down and become even more electronic and move forward with efficiencies. One thing we're looking at this year, as we're coming into the new year, is actually equipment. A lot of equipment, and there's probably going to be a lot of lease companies out there that, probably don't like me saying this, but when you lease equipment, as I see over time, over a 5-year period, you can pay 5, even 10 times, a lot more for a piece of equipment than if you just owned it yourself. And there's companies out there that have excellent programs where I could probably pay for a piece of equipment in a year what I would pay for a lease and get a lifetime service agreement on it just by ordering my supplies through them. So that's one of the things we're looking at this year. And I think that's going to give us a substantial savings over the next 5 years as well.
Crystal Taylor with the Faulkner County Circuit Clerks, or you are the Faulkner County Circuit Clerk, rather. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing this positive story about what conservatives can do in government, manage things better and find these savings. I know that's exactly what the people sent you there for, and so I wanted to highlight that story. And it's a pleasure to meet you and have you on the program, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
Sounds great. I'd love to. Thank you so much.
All righty.
Thanks for inviting me to your show. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Folks, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back here in just a moment. We're going to go over some House State Agencies audio that happened yesterday at the Marble Palace. Continuing coverage of the 92nd General Assembly live from Little Rock 101.1 The Answer Studios. Back in a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, Contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Place the ability to protect our home, to protect our property, and if necessary, use physical force or even deadly physical force. There are many people out there who do not understand the law as it is right now, and I would go even further to say that there are many law enforcement officers who still do not understand just exactly what the law is. If someone asks them, you know, hey, if someone is coming into my house, can I use deadly force? And, you know, sometimes they'll just kind of cock their head and say, well, I mean, you better be very careful about making that decision. You know, if you can retreat to a safe place, well, that's not true on your property or in your home. But that is true the way it stands now if you are out in the public somewhere where you are free to.
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried-up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, yesterday on the program, we told you that the Senate State Agencies Committee debated the day before on this first bill, this government reorganization bill, something that the Governor Asa Hutchinson wants, something he announced during the primary when he was in a Republican primary with Jan Morgan about how he's going to reorganize government and transform government. So this is kind of the beginning of that. And a lot of people had questions, but the bottom line is this. There is a figure that's floating out there that if we pass this initial bill that's going to reorganize the agencies, set up secretaries and everything else that answer directly to the governor, that there's going to be $15 million in savings. And so there was some discussion as to where that number comes from. Can we get that number? Can we see the math on that number? Both Republicans and Democrats on the committee, Will Bond and is Senator Hickey as well, wanted that, as well as Senator Ron Caldwell, who wanted DFNA to get the numbers, asked them to get the numbers. But there are people that just want to see how you arrive at a $15 million in savings. And there seemed to be some, well, they didn't have the numbers. So then yesterday, after the House adjourned, the same bill was brought up in the House Committee, State Agencies Committee, and we have that audio for you. And once again, there were questions of I'm sorry, do we have that? Go ahead and play the clip from state agencies, House state agencies. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Davis, speaking about consolidation and attrition, can you talk a little bit more about the proposed savings of the transformation plan?
So that's a big question. It's a good question. It's, I'll be honest with you, it's not, it's kind of difficult to answer. I mean, we can't pin it down because the bill itself does not eliminate any positions. It doesn't force, other than administratively putting people in the same group, it doesn't eliminate anybody, doesn't eliminate any positions, so on and so forth. We gave you an example you should have in front of you from AEDC when we moved ASTA and Rural Services underneath them. Similarly, when we've done these things in the past, we've not been able to say it's going to save X amount of money because we don't know exactly how the positions are going to change over time. But this is what did happen at AEDC after we consolidated those three groups. We've got a savings of roughly $6 million over the last 4 years. So, you know, I can't say it would be the same rate for every department. Some departments probably have a higher rate of turnover than others. So we know there'll be savings. I mean, we just know there's going to be because people are going to leave and then we're going to share services and so on and so forth. But I can't put a number to it.
Representative Scott, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's probably just a question I need to talk to Ms. Amy about because I know when she talked to us earlier about the maybe 40 jobs that were kind of with the turnover with AED, is it Q?
C.
C, sorry. So I think I'm just trying to look for a one-pager maybe of how the new, what are we calling them?
Departments?
The new departments kind of look like in, if there's some kind of, I don't know how we would get to the matrix of what I'm asking for, but I know that example was, I thought the number was 5 million, but I mean, I guess it's 6 million.
Well, it's increased because
Okay.
we've got the last fiscal year added into it. It was 5 million at one point when we talked.
So I thought it was like maybe 40 jobs that we were talking about last time. So I'm just trying to get an overview.
Some of the things that we did that are in that example too are not just jobs. Some of them are jobs, but also rent and other things are included in that factor because we consolidated from 3 different rents to 1. So that there's other things there. But are you talking about, is your question about how it will be structured or like how many jobs you're looking at in each?
Okay.
Well, I know that was an example that you gave us. So I guess I'm trying
to run out of time here, folks. That is from the House State Agencies Committee. You heard them say they didn't talk about that $15 million in savings number. A little bit more clear here. They're now saying that they don't really know exactly how much is going to be saved, but what they can do is they're providing an example of how much they saved when they consolidated the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. Which of course AEDC is that's the commission that, you know, is involved in a lot of corporate welfare and that sort of thing to try to create jobs. But they do say it's going to save money. But there's not going to be positions lost. Or of course he just said that there will be attrition, but there's different levels of attrition or different levels of turnover in different departments. Anyway, I think it's good that these legislators, both Democrat and Republican, are asking these questions. It becomes really frustrating, though, when we can't get an exact estimate. You know, we're going to save this much money. Well, how did you get the numbers? We'll wait and see. They've asked for, the Senate committee on the other side has asked for revenue impact statements. They've asked the Bureau of Legislative Research to provide those. They've also asked, again, Senator Caldwell asked the Department of Finance and Administration to turn over any documents that they have over, you know, as to how they got to these numbers, $15 million. Another note, kind of a rabbit trail here, or maybe a tangent on this whole thing. In the Senate committee 2 days ago, they seem to indicate that the Senate will have confirmation authority over these secretaries, these new secretary positions in the consolidation process. If that is the case, by the way, that's a big deal, I think. Now, whether or not that was a promise or it was more like, well, we think, or it should, the Senate should have the Senate should have confirmation authority, but that's going to come in bills at a later date. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on it. We're going to watch our Facebook page for updates today, and the YouTube channel and the live stream for updates today as we cover the 92nd General Assembly. Stephen Meeks will run his microchip bill, I'm told, at 10 a.m. this morning as the House convenes. Folks, Arkansas, thanks so much for being with us. Be safe. Have a great day.